What we found in your room justified all our fears. How long have you been reading these horrid books?
That old black magic has lit.
That's right.
That old black magic
Close your eyes.
The door opened, as though being pulled by some unknown force.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, 93s. Gosh. So the other day, I was tagged in a video by Helki Rain. She's such a sweetheart. She's a big part of the tarot reading community, which I didn't realize was actually like a big thing until, I want to say about 2 years ago. And she tagged me and a whole bunch of other people. So I'm slowly working my way through that list, and then trying to sort of like get to know the other people that she's mentioned, because they seem like really cool individuals. And it got me thinking about tools in general, but also tarot. So what I'm going to be doing with this video, hopefully if I edit it correctly, you guys will be able to see a few examples of some of the cards in the decks. But like I said, if there's a particular deck you want to have a look at a bit more closely, then let me know in the comment section to record an actual flip through, and then I can do that for you. But with the idea of tools also, it's all part of like my reintroduction to the world of pagan YouTube and occult YouTube. Obviously I have moved from the UK to Canada just over a year ago, and with that I had to leave like a massive chunk of my magical arsenal as far as tools were concerned. I had to leave a lot of my books behind. I had to leave a lot of my tools behind. A lot of my tarot card decks are still in the UK, and one of my future plans with my husband is at some point to be able to travel back and visit my family, but then also whip out an empty suitcase wherein I can put all my crystals and my tarot cards and other things with me, like other books and things, and just take back what I can and bring them all back here, because it'll probably work out a little bit cheaper to do that rather than waiting for my family to post every single thing out to me as and when they can. That's just a bit crazy, and I don't want them getting lost in the mail, so it's probably just easier to physically go out and pick them up. But her video was really interesting because it really did sort of solidify this need for me to reintroduce myself to the idea of socialization in general. Makes it seem like I don't socialize. I do, a little bit. But also just kind of see what's going on in the communities right now. Obviously, a lot has changed since I last uploaded videos. A whole lot has changed. It's been years since I've uploaded anything. And I just kind of want to figure out where I need to kind of start and where I need to dip my toe in to sort of get to know other people, to network, and also maybe make friends at some point. And so far it's been really, kind of slow, because I haven't really kind of pushed myself. I haven't really been sure where to go, and I've been a little bit overwhelmed. But Helki did this one tag video, which was incredibly helpful. And while I would love to do the tag video for myself at this moment, I really can't right now, because like I said, I'm trying to get used to like this new way of like uploading videos and like meeting new people in the communities that sort of all cross-section with each other. So I'm gonna just take my time, and then I've already noted it in my calendar that at some point in the future I would like to revisit her video and actually then answer the tag video for myself once I've built up a nice comprehensive list of my favorite tarot channels and tarot focused and divination focused channels. That's actually kind of handy. So I would highly recommend that you guys check out her video. I'll put the links down below, and show her some love and support. She's an absolute sweetheart. So I'm going to be showing you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm terrible at counting. About 15 different decks. Like I said, if I've managed to edit this properly, as I'm speaking about each deck very briefly, hopefully I would have intersected the video with a couple of cards, like to show you an example of what the card art looks like in each deck as I go along. So hopefully it'll work. I'm assuming if you're seeing this, it has worked. But like I said, if there is anything or any decks that you want a much closer look at, and you would like me to perhaps do like a flip through and a bit more of a detailed thoughts and feelings. I don't know if it'll be a review because I've had them for a while, but I guess you could say more of like a thoughts and feelings kind of like discussion about a particular deck, then do let me know in the comment section. I'd be more than happy to do that. So I think we've got like certain sections. And like I said, this isn't all of my tarot card decks. One of them in particular, I would absolutely love to show you guys, but I had to leave it in the UK because it was both a storytelling deck and also not a storytelling deck. It was like 2 sets of cards. And then the idea was that you were then supposed to just sort of edit the deck the way that you wanted to look at the cards, and then all the other spare cards would just kind of be left at the side, which was the IJJ Swiss deck that came free with Mind Body Spirit magazine a few years ago. So that's one deck that I wish I could have had with me right now, and I don't, and I beat myself up about it all the time. But I love that deck. It's like old school, it's nice. But anyway, I'm blabbing. This is what I'm famous for. Let's go straight into the first set of cards that I have, which I consider to be my absolute favorites at the moment. The first deck that I want to very briefly discuss with you is Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris's The Thoth Tarot. I call it Thoth because it's ancient Egyptian. We don't necessarily know how they spoke back then, but Thoth was kind of always how I kind of picked it up. Because I didn't really like the idea of the whitewashing of like the Nietzsche's names or anything, so I've kind of stuck with the Nietzsche's names as they were supposed to be. So I refer to it as the Thoth Tarot. Obviously other people will probably call it the Thoth because it's, you know, the Greek version, and that's totally fine as well, but I just prefer that. Let's just throw in some politics where it's not needed. I'm gonna just keep going on a tangent, so I better stop myself. The Thoth Tarot is an absolutely fantastic deck. It's also my absolute favorite tarot card deck of all the tarot card decks that I've owned throughout my life. It's the most in-depth, most concise, most occultically in-depth, I've already kind of said that like 5 times, in-depth deck that I've also used to read and channel with. And it was also actually the first deck that actually got me into the idea of both path working on the Kabbalistic tree, on the Tree of Life, and that then led me into the idea of experimenting with my tarot cards and self-healing. This was actually during a time, like the last 2 years have just been extremely difficult for me, because I was healing from terrible things that happened in a previous job that I had, and I was kind of like dealing with the aftermath of that, and I needed to go back to therapy and all that kind of stuff. And the Thoth Tarot was the one deck that really pulled me through all of it, and it was really essential for me in that sense, and it made me look at tarot cards in a completely different way at that point. And I realized I could do more with tarot than just the creative stuff and just the general readings and spiritual growth, but I could also look to really focus on just self-care and not really doing any kind of like in-depth readings for the spiritual aspect, but purely just for the self-care and psychological aspect. The Thoth Tarot really opened that up for me, and I think that was mostly because the Thoth Tarot, there was a ton of correspondences related to each and every single card in this deck, including the 2 extra magician cards, which basically act as the same as the other magician cards, because you get 80 in this deck. You can look at the cards correspondences, whether it be whether it be Kabbalistic, astrological. If you're into gematria, you can look at it from the Hebrew alphabet point of view, numerical values, the color. The colors are actually used in each of the cards to kind of represent whatever colors are represented or corresponded with that particular power line. There's all sorts that you can do with this particular deck, and it's just the most in-depth deck that I've ever read, like I said. And I've also found that since I started reading the tarot years and years and years ago, I've always loved going from one deck to the other and sort of understanding what it is that the artists were trying to do, especially with the visual aspect of reading tarot. But once I started reading the Thoth deck, I realized there's no other deck, and this is my personal opinion, there's no other deck that can match the Thoth Tarot deck, and that's just something that I found both quite surprising, but also something to be quite welcoming too. So I always go back to this deck for most of my workings. More magical most of the time, and sometimes I split it between the idea of self-care, but for the most part, it's like my number one go-to deck. The box, unfortunately, is completely tattered, and my husband does have the much larger version of the deck, so now I have access to 2 of them, so it's great. It's just a really great deck. One of those things, one of the main things that I do hear a lot about the Thoth Tarot is that a lot of people can't really seem to connect with the artwork too well. They don't really like the style. I personally like the style. That's why I keep reading it. It's more than just the style for me though, so I kind of managed to overlook that a little bit. But a lot of people find that they can't really connect with it, and it does make me feel a little bit sad sometimes, because it's like, you guys, like, there is so much occult knowledge being literally thrown at you right now, and it's so in-depth because of that, and you're missing out. But I've been trying to find alternative scents that can be read to a high standard like this deck can be. So once I find a few more alternatives, I'll be able to sort of like let you guys know once I get a few more decks. I'm not going to get a massive amount, but once I get a few more decks, I'll be able to let you guys know to try those ones before you give the Thoth Tarot a looky or a try in the future. But yeah, I've talked for way too long about that deck. I could do a whole video on this deck, which I probably will do in the future. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. Second card deck is the Fountain Tarot, created by Jonathan Syers. I think his name is Syers. I don't know. I'm so sorry if he ends up watching this. I got your name wrong. Whoops. This was one of the first decks that I got in the last, I want to say the last 2 or 3 years. And I got it and I kind of put it down. It was still in the plastic wrapper and I didn't really open it up because at the time, like I said, I was dealing with a lot and I just didn't feel drawn to that particular deck at that time. I was drawn to buying it, so I bought it, but then I just didn't open it once I got it. I kind of just left it on the shelf for a while and just focused on other decks and other magical endeavors. But when I finally opened up this deck, I was completely blown away. Not only is it absolutely stunning, I mean, look at the packaging, like it's holographic, it's holosexual, you know? It's absolutely stunning. And each of the cards, which I will show you now, are just breathtaking. That's the only way that I can describe it. Even now, I still see it as a very breathtaking deck. It's just, there's something so pure and so refreshing and so clean and so cleansing about this particular deck. So whilst I'll be able to sit and read these cards, you know, during a general reading, I also highly value these cards because of how I feel around them, because of how pure they feel to me and how refreshing they feel more than anything. I think I would say that I definitely describe them as being more refreshing than anything else. Because of how refreshing they are, I feel that they are perfect for self-care for me. And so that's what I ended up using them for. When I finally opened them up, I realized I was being pushed in that right direction to open up this deck and start using it. And my God, the readings and the challenges came out of me like a flood. I felt so fresh afterwards. I felt so good. And they gave me a sort of a sense of catharsis as well, which was really something that I just kind of hadn't realized that I needed at the time. And again, I think that's because of the refreshing aspect of the designs of these cards, of each of the cards. I would sit and I would do a reading about something, like a really difficult question, or I'd have a really difficult subject that I wanted to sit and meditate on, and I couldn't figure out what the right steps would be, or if I should deny certain aspects to focus on other things. You know, you name it. I was just trying to find ways and reasons for why I needed to do a reading with this particular deck. And this deck, almost every single time I read with it, especially during that first year, I'd always come away just feeling very tearful. And if I wasn't tearful, I was crying. So it was a very emotional deck for me. I don't know what it was. I don't know. It was really strange. And I still sort of get those feelings now, but I've got a much better emotional grip on my reading with these particular cards. So now this is like one of those decks that I would consider to be like a very subject specific tool, and I do use it more for self-care more than anything. So I absolutely love it. But like I said, the artwork is just it's so beautiful. But anyway, I'm gonna keep blabbing. if you want me to do another full video on this, which I'm actually feeling I might just do anyway, I will do that. But yeah, so this is the Fountain Tarot by Jonathan Sayers. There are two other guys who worked with him. One was the artist and one was the writer, but I don't remember their names. I know one was Tirado and one was Gruel, but I don't remember their first names. So I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, it's just a fantastic deck. There's just something so stunning about it, and I love it. So I had to put it there as my number 2, so you guys could also check it out in case you haven't. Anyway, deck number 3. So this is the next deck. I just have to be careful. This one lives by my bed. This one is the Modern Witch Tarot by Lisa Sterl. It's published by Liminal 11. Like I said, I keep this one by my bed. I normally don't keep it closed either because I'm a dirty ass bitch. I usually keep them like this, right by my bed. So at any given time, whenever I feel the need to, I can just get up, do a reading, I'm good to go. There's a table right there. I make notes on my phone, or I note them down in like a very slim tarot card journal that I have, and I'm good to go. This deck is based off the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot deck, but I just prefer this one because it's modern. There's black people in it, there's gay people in it, you name it. This is an incredibly diverse deck and I love it. I didn't expect that when I first got this deck, to be honest, because I'm so used to just reading tarot for years and never expecting to see someone like myself or any of my friends represented in it in a particular deck. I just don't expect that. So when I came across this deck, I still didn't know about any of that until I actually got the deck. And then when I opened it up, I was like, well, damn, this deck is wow. So not only is the art style absolutely fantastic, it's really fun, it's very brightly colored, it's absolutely buzzing. A lot of the colors being used on each of the cards are still very closely linked to some of the correspondences that I like to associate tarot with, especially from like the Thoth point of view, using Libra 777. It's an absolutely fantastic deck and I love it so much. It's crazy because this deck also, from an emotional point of view and from a psychic point of view, it's a deck that always makes me feel very excited. I always feel very accomplished when I've used this deck. And again, it's one of those decks, just like the Fountain Tarot and the Thoth Tarot, that I use a lot for self-care. And what I normally do is I will pick out a deck or two for a month, and then that is the only deck that I will use for self-care for that entire month, and also for spiritual development. And more than not, I've used this deck for a lot of months over the past year and a month, especially since I've gotten here into Canada. I've used this deck an awful lot. I don't know what it is. It just gets me all excited. It gets me all giddy. I just feel very positive and very confident about it. Even when I get reverse cards, I still feel very positive about it. I don't know whether that's because of, in some way, there's a kind of unknown shadow element to this particular deck, but I always feel like there's always a really good solution and there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always a good way to just deal with the things that you have previously had troubles with in a completely new light, and it just kind of provides that for me. So it kind of provides that kind of new light aspect. I also absolutely love the fact that, like I said, it's a very diverse deck, and as much as I love the Rider-Waite Smith deck, which is an old school classic deck, I'm going to show you guys in a minute, I just love the fact that it's just been modernized. I just think it's a fantastic deck. So yeah, it's just one of my favorites. It's one of those decks, like I said, that sits on my bed. If it came in a much smaller size box, without the slidey bit here, I think it would have been one of my handbag decks as well. Like, it would have been one that I would have just thrown in my bag and it would have lived in my bag forever. It's just a great deck. I love it. It's just exciting. It's so exciting. It's just so exciting. It's exciting. It's exciting. Okay, let me move on to the next deck, because it gets me so excited. I don't know why. It just does. I'm just gonna, Okay, so the next deck, there's two. They're both by the same writer and artist and illustrator. I'm not quite sure what the right terminology is. And you've probably seen them already because I keep talking about them quite a bit. It's the Lightseer and the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann. Wow, I almost forgot. I wonder if there's a reading for like how to improve your dementia. So yeah, that's these two decks right here. I love them. They also give me the weird fuzzy excited feelings as well, but I find with the Muse Tarot I'm a little bit more calm. It's a bit more chill. Like with the Fountain Tarot, I just feel refreshed, but I also feel very calm and very still and in the moment. And I kind of get the same vibes from the Muse Tarot. Whereas the Lightseer deck, I feel both academic and excited all at the same time, because I know it deals with shadow work, which is something that I've loved for years. So I love both of these decks because of what they bring forward. At the moment, because the Muse Tarot is still so new to me, I'm using it mostly for creative endeavors. I haven't really posted anything, but I'm using it mostly for creative endeavors right now because it just comes across, it just feels like one of those decks that's just for creative endeavors. And so that's what I'm doing. I don't know what else it could be used for at the moment. It's just more creative stuff. So mostly my writing and my poetry more than anything. And it's just been really helpful in that sense. I've worked with muses before in general as a witch when I was much younger. And whenever I called on the muses to help me out with something, they were always there within a matter of seconds. And then I would just be able to just sit and channel whatever work or creative works I was trying to put out. I was suddenly able to do it in a very short amount of time. So I really like the Muse Tarot for that reason. The Lightseer deck, like I said, makes me feel very kind of academic, and I love that. And it really pushed me back into the world of understanding Jung and dream interpretation and all that kind of stuff. So that's been really handy. I haven't had to use it so much for self-care too often. I have tried in the past, and it's a great deck for me to use for self-care, but I don't know, I just feel more kind of relaxed and kind of general with it. So it's a deck that I'm just going to continue using as just, you know, a regular tarot card deck, and just kind of go from there and continue to learn from it what I can. But there is definitely one thing that I did notice about this particular deck. So this is definitely one of those decks I would highly recommend. If you're not quite ready to read the Thoth yet, you're not ready to leave the circle yet, I would highly recommend checking out the Lightseer deck. And then maybe from there, go into the world of shadow work and light work, and then seeing how that might be helpful on your path as a magic practitioner. So yeah, that's that one. So yeah, they've got their joint. Their joint. I couldn't decide which one was better than the other. They're both just as delicious as each other. But yeah, you see, I'm so much more calmer now when I'm talking about that one. But if I talk about the Modern Witch, I just go crazy. I don't know what it is. The next deck I'm going to show you is one of many of Lo Scarabeo decks that I owned. Most of those decks I've had to leave in the UK, but I picked up this one and made sure to bring it with me because of the subject matter, and I have young siblings, so I didn't want them to see this deck. And plus I was closing the long distance aspect of a relationship that I had with my husband when we were still boyfriend and girlfriend, or still engaged. So I thought this would be kind of handy to actually try out and do more readings from for him and I. Over the years, when I've actually been reading from this particular deck, it's called the Tower of Sexual Magic. Woo! I'm trying not to show you too much. I think that's probably why I didn't even mention the title. I've used these cards when I used to do readings a lot on my channel, like years ago, like private readings mostly. I used to do private readings for clients for free because it was a way for me to give back to the community, but also just to practice. And I was doing readings for clients, and it was always fine to just do readings for other clients. I never really did anything for myself other than perhaps using it for like magical working. So I actually used this particular deck in a lot of my spell work and early ritual work in order to attract love into my life. And of course it never worked. It never worked. The universe had a whole different plan for me. And I was just too stubborn. So it was great to actually get my hands on this deck. I remember when I first saw it, I was just instantly drawn to it. I was like, I don't know why, but I need this deck. It was really great practice, like I said, to work with it with other people. But since I've been here, it's been really essential for my own both self-discovery and also just trying to understand the romantic aspects of a relationship in general. My husband is also my first ever boyfriend, so the romance and the dating and all that kind of stuff, that kind of skipped me by. I was always rejected by people, so I never really understood love or relationships other than what I saw in books or on TV or in films. And I just kind of thought for the longest time like it was never going to happen, so there was no point. But it didn't stop me from wanting to learn how to love myself, and how to help other people with their own self-love and all that kind of stuff. So this really helped me out. I'm trying to hide it. This deck really helped me out a great deal, both psychologically and emotionally. And yeah, I owe this deck an awful lot, so I absolutely love it. But now, like I said, because I've closed the distance, there's a lot of adult things that my husband and I get to do, and this deck has also been incredibly helpful, so yeah. I'm just getting weird now. I'm going to move on to the next card. Let's move on to the next deck. The next deck that I'm going to show you is one that I've only used a few times, but I'm also very highly intrigued by the creator, Kim Kranz, in general. She also has an oracle deck out, but I will talk about oracle cards in another tarot card video, which I'll be uploading at some point soon. I'm trying to get everything done like ASAP because I'm going back to work. And this one is called The Wild Unknown. Now, this one is massively popular. I don't think you can go on to Instagram and not go under the hashtag tarot and not see a card or 5 from this particular deck. And if it's not from this deck, it's from her oracle deck, which I'm in love with, but I don't have money right now, so I can't get it just yet. But I absolutely love this deck. I've used this one a few times, not a great deal. At the moment, it's mostly because I prefer just sort of doing general readings with it. I haven't assigned a topic or a subject to it yet because I just haven't felt the need to just yet. But it's also a deck that has taken me a little while to feel 100% connected to. I'm still building up that relationship with this particular deck, but the designs of each of the cards, like the artwork, is still stunning nonetheless, and I think that's what always keeps drawing me back. There's something kind of spiritual about this deck, and I think that's why I keep it around, and that's why I like to read from it every so often rather than all the time like I do with the other first few decks I've been showing you. This is one that I tend to go to when I kind of want a bit more spiritual guidance and I just want a moment to sort of meditate and just chill, so just mostly for general readings. But yeah, I absolutely love this deck. I think it's absolutely stunning, and I would like to see what else the creator and artist is doing in the future, so I like to keep an eye on what she's doing. So yeah, The Wild Unknown. The next deck is also created by someone who is massive in the tarot community, one of the big pioneers known as Biddy. And this one is Biddy's Everyday Tarot. It's a very small box, it's super cute. And this is what I consider to be a handbag tarot card deck. This is one that I would normally just have in my bag, if my bag is big enough. And whenever I'm out and about, having lunch on the underground, well, the TTC, whatever it is, if I feel the need to do a general reading on myself or with friends or whatever, then I can. But since moving to Canada, I haven't really made a lot of friends here because I've just been busy. It's either because we've been indoors because of the pandemic, or I just haven't been out and about meeting new people because I've been at work. So this is just one of those decks I like to keep around just to do general readings. I'm trying to convince my husband at the moment to give this deck a chance, but the artwork is kind of like, it's throwing him off. He comes from like exclusively a Thoth and Smith-Rider-Waite deck experience, so looking at other decks just kind of confuses the absolute hell out of him, and it's hilarious. But I'm trying to convince him to look at this particular deck, and he's taking his sweet time, and it's so frustrating. But yeah, I like this deck. It's easy to carry with you on the go, and again, it just kind of, a lot of the images are kind of basic, and it's a really great introductory to tarot if you've never read tarot before. So I would highly recommend checking out this deck too. So this is the Everyday Tarot. You should be able to get it at most bookshops on the little kind of like spinny things that have like all the Zen gardens and other little kits. It should normally be located there. So get your hands on one if you are new to tarot, or if you just want a handy little deck to carry with you out and about. The next two decks that I wanted to show you, again, they're kind of on par with each other. One is called the Synesthesia Tarot, which I did a terrible unboxing for, which I'm going to redo at some point soon. And the next one is the Serpentfire Tarot. This one is Toronto based, or at least Canada based. So when I found out it was based here, I immediately wanted to support all the artists who were involved with the creator in getting this deck. And that's one thing that I want to do, try and find out more about the pagan and the occult communities here in Canada, and specifically in Toronto if there is one, and then just seeing what's out there so I can, again, give back to the community and help out and do my little bit. But these are kind of on par with each other because of the designs. This one's a very simplistic deck, the Synesthesia deck. The idea is that when you're reading, you have general tarot knowledge, but you're also able to channel other thoughts and feelings as you do the reading with these particular cards. So they're incredibly minimalistic. They are completely matte and it's absolutely beautiful. And I've also fallen in love with black cards and black decks of late, and this is the very first one that I managed to get my hands on. I just love this deck. The simplicity of it is just divine. For someone who is quite experienced with tarot, I would highly recommend at least checking it out. But I just love this particular deck. Very similarly to the Wild Unknown and also the Fountain Tarot, I find that this deck is more of a spiritual thing. And I find that I get more spiritual kind of readings from this particular deck. But very similarly to the Tarot of Sexual Magic, I have used it a couple times in spell work rather than ritual work. And it's been incredibly helpful for that, as well as meditation. So I absolutely love the Synesthesia Tarot. I would highly also recommend you check it out. The other one that's also on par, like I said, is the Serpent Tarot. This one is a deck that is made up entirely of collage. And like I said in my Muse Tarot sort of like flip through, collage is something that always throws me. But I think that it's been very tastefully done in this particular deck, and I think that's why I absolutely love it. There's a very cool 60s and 70s esoteric and occult vibe to it as well. So I tend to keep it quite close to where we used to have our altars. Now it's just sitting in front of all of my occult books instead. And if I want to do a bit more shadow work or anything, this is usually the deck that I pull out to do that kind of reading. So yeah, it's been a really nice deck so far, and I'm slowly making that really deep and sensual connection to it, and I find it to be a highly sensual deck. So yeah, last few cards. Of course, I can't go through a whole video without mentioning this particular deck. This is the original Rider-Waite Smith tarot card deck. There's not really much I can say about this deck other than it was one of the first ever decks I managed to get my hands on when I first got into the world of tarot. But then for some reason I gave it away. I was an idiot. I gave it away, and yeah, I managed to get myself a brand new copy, but I left that one in the UK. This one actually just happens to belong to my husband. It's one of those decks that I have a love-hate relationship with. Half the time I absolutely love it because of its simplicity, but also its depth. But I also hate it because, I don't know, it's just, I kind of always saw it as like a competition with the Tarot de Marseille and other decks like that. And those were like the old school decks that I learned tarot from. So I kind of just saw it as like attempting to combine or like replace those decks, and I got all kind of weird in my head, and I was like, I love and hate this particular deck. So it's one of those decks I just have a love-hate relationship with. And because I've been studying Thelema as well as Crowley for years, I also know about the contentions and issues that a lot of magicians and occultists had with Arthur Edward Waite when he was alive, and I guess I'm kind of swayed by that. So yeah, I'm just gonna move on to the next deck now. The next deck, which is the last one that I'm going to be showing you as far as decks that I use regularly. It's not because of any particular issues, because I only recently found out there was issues with the author. I don't know. I don't really care. As long as the cards are able to be read, I'm good. I'm good to go. And this particular deck is Mystic Mondays, and I absolutely really like it. I only found out about it a few years ago because of the app, and I loved the app. I thought the app was really refreshing, it was cool, it was new for me, and that was when I started realising I was missing out a whole lot as far as the internet and the occult, pagan and like divination communities were concerned. So I was missing out quite a bit, and when I found out there was an actual physical tarot card deck, I was like, oh well, that's great, I'm going to get my hands on a copy. And so I did. I really like this deck. Again, it's a very colourful deck. I did find it to be a little simplistic for my own liking. So what I ended up using it for originally was mostly just for self-care, not so much general sort of like deep spiritual readings or anything. It was just kind of like general, but also self-care, because it also has those elements where it's also just really fun to read with, but you don't actually have to try that hard. I don't have to ground as much when I'm done. I feel really good afterwards and feel kind of vitalized, which is kind of cute. The colours, again, very vivid, kind of obvious, really beautiful. But that's about it. That's kind of like toward the end of the whole list. I love it, but... Well, no. I like it, but I don't love it just yet. So I think I just need to keep using it a little bit more to try and see how well I can connect with it in the future. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Watch this space. Watch this space. Now... the last two decks I'm going to show you are very brief. One of them I wasn't actually going to show you because it's technically classed as an oracle deck, even though on the box it's called the Enochian Tarot, which is this one. It's a double-sided deck. Ooh. This one belongs to my husband. I think I bought this for him like a few years ago. I saw it out, I think. Or he bought it. I can't quite remember. We've bought each other gifts over the years. I can't remember. The Enochian Tarot, obviously, if you understand, is based entirely on the Enochian system. So, the Enochian system, and I think elements of the Rosicrucian system, as well as the Thelemic and other occult and esoteric systems as well. So you have certain color gradings that mean certain things, gematria, angels, demons, you name it. They're all kind of in this particular deck. So I'll give you guys a super quick flip through. I don't have the box with me. I'm not sure what's happened to the box. I have no idea. But as you can see, the cards are also double-sided. So you can read the cards in any way and you can still get a really substantial reading. I've only used this deck a few times, whereas my husband has used it a lot over the years. And he absolutely loves this deck. He loves this one in the Thoth deck more than anything. So if you are a very advanced occult practitioner or an intermediate occult practitioner, as far as like especially Enochian or Kabbalah or anything is concerned, and you're also really good at reading tarot, then I would highly recommend checking out this deck. It might challenge you a bit, and that should be really exciting for you. So this is on my wish list to learn a little bit more about. Because I would love to be able to use this deck a little bit more in future readings, just for myself, not so much for people, and just kind of see where I go from there and just sort of see how I develop and grow as a diviner. So yeah, I think that is it for that particular deck. Anyway, the very last one I'm going to be really brief about, because I don't know, I'm in two minds about doing an unpopular opinions video. I did something on my writing channel for it and it was quite good, I have to say. But this deck is the Book of Shadows Tarot. Comes with two decks, so you've got as above, so below. I cannot connect with this deck, or either of them. I don't know what it is. I just can't seem to connect with them. I'm going to keep trying and trying and trying. But I have a habit of, if I genuinely cannot connect with a deck, for whatever reason, like spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, whatever, if I can't connect, I'll just pass it on to someone else. And I'm at that point where I feel like I could be quite happy just passing it on to someone who is very new to the world of magic. And she doesn't have a lot of money, understandably, because no one's really working right now and stuff. So I wouldn't mind sending it to her, just popping it in the mail and sending it along. But at the same time, I also want to give myself another 6 months with it and just see what happens and kind of force myself to do a bit more readings, do more meditations with it. I don't know, do some workings with it, just try and figure out what I could do with it. But I've got this inkling, this nagging voice in the back of my mind that's telling me that there's no way that I'm going to connect with this deck. Or either of them, sorry. So I don't know. I'm in two minds. I want to know if any of you guys also have this particular decks, if you have one or the other, or if you have this combined collection, like what your thoughts and feelings were, or what you guys do. If you find that you have a deck that doesn't seem all that easy to connect with, what have you guys have been doing? What have you folks been doing to try and connect with those particular decks? Because that could probably help quite a bit. I need to do a bit more research, I think. But I don't know. This is the second time in my life where I have been stung, it feels like. I've bought a deck because it looked beautiful, because I felt drawn to it. And then once I opened it up and started looking through every card and trying to meditate with them, I then found that I just wasn't like physically connecting with the cards as much as I should have. And then I just feel really kind of heartbroken afterwards. Like I feel really sad, like, oh, what am I doing wrong? I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just, I don't know. It's really strange. It's really bizarre. Anyway, you have made it this far in the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so sorry that it is such a long video. This is what I'm also known for. I will upload something that's like half an hour long and then call it a quick video. So that was something a lot of people used to call me out on a lot in the past. They were like, "Sai, stop." But yeah, I just wanted to show you some of the cards that I have. And like I said, having moved to Toronto, I'm having to restart collecting and building up my magical arsenal all over again. And we've obviously lost our altar. So our altar at the moment is very movable. It's kind of all over our apartment at the moment. So I'm at that point now where everything is fresh, new and exciting. And I'm really just enjoying the process this time around because I've got no pressures or anything. So I'm taking my sweet time. And I'm actually going to go against a personal rule of mine, which is just not buying any more decks, buying more decks. And I want to get into the world of Oracle reading a bit more because I've always just kind of stayed away from it. I just find it difficult. It's the only way that I can put it. It's just difficult and just kind of hard. But I will give it a go and just kind of see what happens there. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I'm blabbing. I'm going to move on to the next video, so my clothes will not be changing. Yeah. So thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Continue to mask up and social distance wherever you can. And be kind to one another. So, yeah. 93s and Imhotep.